All right, we are live.
All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Talking Chickens with M&M Exhibition Poultry, Mike and Matt. Today we've got someone we've both known a long time, Mr. Jeff Halbach. Jeff's an ABA, APA general license judge. Raised all kinds of birds. His family is, which we'll find a little more about today. Halbach Poultry Family of Wisconsin. Like I said, Matt and I have known him for 50 years. And hi, Jeff. Welcome to the show.
Good afternoon. Great to be here.
Great to have you.
Good to have you. All right, Matt, do you want to lead it off or you want me to do it?
I'm going to start
I'm
with
have trouble with my camera here. I don't know.
Okay, just some shameless plugs. I know everybody get your ABA new standard ordered, bantamclub.com. They're going fast, and this is what I've been told. This will be the best price you'll get on it. So if you get in there and pre-order, the last I talked to Karen and Kevin, we had over 100 and some pre-ordered. So this has worked, and some of the online advertising has worked to get that out and get some pre-sales going. It's the biggest issue we've ever published. It got a lot of neat stuff in it. So I recommend everybody go get that. And I think other than that, the ABA National's coming up in Columbus, and we're getting plans for that and plans for the auction. And looks to be a big one. I know it talked to Newt last week, in 7,000 to 8,000 is a projection. One hotel's clear full, the other one's almost full. So that's always a good sign up in front that we're going to have a big show when the hotels start filling up. So I think that's all I got, Mike, unless you got something else to. Oh, yearbook. Still get yearbook ads in if you want to get one.
Yep. Yeah. And we are sponsored by Rosier's Poultry Supply, www.rosierpoultrysupplies.com. Anything you need, you can go to their website. You can find the numbers. You can text Caitlin. They'll set you right up, and they usually get everything out the same day, sometimes within hours. So great bunch to work with. All right, Jeffrey, why don't you give us a little bit of family history and kind of the lowdown?
Okay. And I'm going to read some of it because I always leave out parts or forget them if I don't. But my family and I have been involved in exhibition poultry for a little over 130 years. And we've had a few good chickens in those 130 years.
Ducks
and geese. We've had 323 show champions in that time period. Anyhow, in the late 1800s, my great-grandfather, Herman Halbach, moved to Waterford, Wisconsin. His parents were immigrants that had immigrated from Germany into the Milwaukee area. He started the general store. And as part of the general store, he wanted to have poultry both for meat and eggs. So with some study, he settled on the breed to do that. In his mind was the Plymouth Rock. And he liked the white variety. He spent 2 or 3 years traveling by rail around the country to shows, because the birds that were available locally, he wanted a more symmetrical bird than what was available. He wanted a fuller breast and a lower tail. The rocks at that time had 70-degree tails, the pictures I've seen. So anyhow, his first show was in 1905. He won a third place ribbon, which still hung in the office at my parents' house. He wanted to be reminded that that was the best he did at one time. From there, he went on to show at the Chicago Coliseum show, winning best display in 1907, 08, 09, 1911, and 13. He didn't show in 10 or 12. in 13 at that Chicago Coliseum show, the National Rock Meet was there, 180 large rocks. He had first through fifth, cock hen, cockerel pullet, old pen, and young pen. Those pens were, 3 females and a male, guys?
Yep.
In the old days.
And that's how they showed, and that showing a number like that. He always wanted to win best display. Anybody he thought could have one good bird. But his idea was to show people that he could breed these things and put them down.
Yeah.
That about ended the showing for him, except in 15, he did go to the Kansas City Royal with a string. In those days, they shipped their chickens to shows in open boxcars. And it turned cold. And he went back to the boxcar and sat there on the way home, holding the males' combs so that they wouldn't freeze. Well, he got pneumonia and subsequently died. So we've given a lot for exhibition poultry.
Yeah.
The business was taken over at that time by my grandfather, William. Didn't show much other than the Milwaukee State Fair. The business was selling chickens, eggs, and adults in White Rocks to other people. That was the family business at that time in the early 1920s. And the general store had been sold, but they continued on with the poultry. It was a family business. My aunts would do all the communications. I have pamphlets or booklets, 20, 30-page booklets with pictures, black and white, of course, that those guys put out in those days. And then my dad took over the farm in 1948. The commercial world by then had gone to the hybrid Leghorn type egg production. Just a side note here that I want to mention that is kind of an unknown when I tell people about it. Back in the teens and 20s, they had annual USDA sponsored egg laying contests.
Right.
And it was a big deal for a farm to win that. We never entered in that, but for many of those years, the grand champion egg laying birds in the country were groups of Osterlorp females that people sent. And we need to remember that egg production when we're looking at Osterlorps today. Yeah. So anyhow, my dad had the rocks, of course. They never left. They were always there. In addition to that, he had hybrid Leghorns, and he would provide chicks to the local farms and sell the rest of the eggs commercially. In 1959, Dad said we need to average 30 cents a dozen for eggs to keep this operation going. We averaged 19 cents a dozen. The commercial hens all went to the stockyards the next day. We had a 60 by, I'm going to say 200 foot building that they were in that summer. We started remodeling with pens, anywhere from 5 by 20 to 20 by 20 for exhibition type birds. From the White Rock knowledge, my dad knew most of the people in the Midwest that had the best large fowl, and he went to them, and we traveled around a lot those next 2 years buying breeding stock. And I had started with Bantams in the late 50s. My first 2 breeds were white Leghorns and light Brahmas. So we started in the chicken egg business, exhibition, and Dad's goal was to produce fowl in any breed, that if he would send 25 chicks to a breeder, the selection would be enough that breeder could improve and show those birds anywhere in the country. And he did a really good job at it. By the mid-60s, he had added geese and ducks to the mix. All of the eggs that we did not set for our customers from January through May all went to Murray McMurray. And we would ship anywhere from 10 to 30 cases of eggs a week to them. Last year I toured McMurray Hatchery, and all the young people there now didn't remember that. The main show for us was the Wisconsin State Fair, and that's about the only place that Dad showed at until I got the show bug early 60s, and we would go to a La Crosse, Wisconsin winter show. And what we needed more of, the birds were raised in a 15 to 20 acre field with oak trees and grass and alfalfa and range houses for the birds. At our max, I suppose there was 15 to 20,000 birds out there. So what we did to increase sales is my Uncle Gene, who had a registered dairy cattle herd, and as you guys know, from the 50s on, Cochins and Japs, Bantams, really good ones, didn't believe in showing much, but he started a lot of people with quality chickens. So anyhow, we went to the Indiana State Fair, which was the top Midwest show at the time. All of the good string men, as well as individual breeders, would show at that state fair. And besides championing the show, we just kicked butt and cleaned up almost every breed, which really developed Dad's business, because from that point, the string men all came to Waterford, Wisconsin to buy their strings. Yeah. And for many of them, like Wilbur Stauffer, that meant 2 cocks, 2 hens, 2 cockerels, 2 pullets, because they had to show 7 birds to pick up the display money. That further enhanced our poultry business, because Wilbur especially, but also a number of the other string men, would tell people where they bought these birds, and that increased the business for us as well. All of the string men, of which there were 6, from Minnesota to New York and throughout the Midwest, they all wanted to be first to get their pick. But the first guy came that first year always remained number 1, and that was Wilbur Stauffer. There were times when Wilbur would arrange it that he would arrive at 2 a.m, so he could be gone by 7 a.m. when Pattersons were coming. And that was a lot of work to catch all those birds and load them up. String men would typically come in April for the old birds, so they could get them out and get them molted out and ready to go. And back in June for the young birds. And for those of you that don't know the string man thing, you could make a living showing chickens in those days. Not a big living, but you could make a living because you sold all the birds at the end of the season. At your last show, they were all for sale, and people knew that and would show up just to buy them. But those birds typically, from when the guys in the Midwest I can speak more knowledgeable about, when they hit that first county fair, through September, those birds were never at home. They went from fair to fair to fair. One of the enhancements that the stringmen got was the birds they bought from us lived. Laryngotracheitis was a hot item at that time. And many of the birds that breeders, stringmen would buy from different places would, their string would be half dead by the end of the year. Dad was a renowned poultry health person. Vets and poultry labs would call him all the time for his opinion. I'll move it along here. When I was young, one of my jobs was to go with my grandfather to mate the rocks up. This was before we had all these breeds. And that would be probably 10 pens, 5 females to a pen and a male. And what we did, and it was really the only thing that was done slowly because there was a ton of work to get done, was to mate these chickens. And the process was, in each pen, we wanted the 5 females to share strong points. We also wanted them to share defects. So then we would go to find a male that could, we thought, correct those defects. And that method of mating poultry for us has been very successful. When all the chickens, ducks, and geese and tens of thousands of birds arrived, all exhibition birds, my job, even after I had left home and moved 15, 20 miles away and got a job every Saturday and Sunday of my life, while that farm was in operation, I was there setting eggs. Mom would put all the orders on a piece of paper, how many chicks of each kind people wanted, and I would set the appropriate number of eggs for that order. And I would always throw in a couple extra eggs of stuff I really liked so I could watch how they did. One of the last things I'll say, and it's a little tough to explain, but both my father and grandfather, they've caught tens of thousands of chickens in their lifetimes. But when they caught a white rock, it was just handled differently than any other chicken. And I catch myself doing the same thing. One of my dad and my grandfather's beliefs, these birds are raised in a big field, they're outdoors, they don't get handled. Once they were handled, brought into a barn, put in a cage, and then handled again, if that chicken was wild and did not stand there to be caught, they wouldn't breed from it. They were kind of cattlemen at heart, poultrymen really, but we knew cattle, and there were wild families of cows that were god awful good, but you didn't want to have to be the guy that led it into the show ring because it might come out and you'd stay there. So we always felt that the temperament was very important. Just in closing on that end of my story, I'm going to say a word about my mother. Mom could and did judge chickens. She knew good ones. She ran the business end of the farm. She got to meet a lot more customers than Dad or I did. And if we would go in for lunch, you'd have to eat bites between phone calls because that's when people were told Harry would be in the house. And that's when the phone would start ringing. So we learned to talk on the phone with food in our mouth. And I miss, Dad would get up twice a night all throughout hatching season, walk a block over to the incubator and turn the crazy eggs. We just had old James Way crank incubators. We didn't have automatic turners. So anyhow, back to Mom. She held everything together. God, Harry and I'd get so angry with each other once in a while. We spent an inordinate amount of time together, working together, living together, praying together. That's what we did. We were always together. I was always with my dad. So Mom got cancer. I won't go into the kind, but she came home to die with her family. And I had to go out I was supposed to go out to the Congress that weekend to judge a show. And I said, Mom, you got to help me out here. I don't know what to do. I'm supposed to judge in Massachusetts this weekend, but I want to stay with you. She said, you go judge the poultry show. That's what we do. I'll be here when you get back Monday. She died that Monday morning, but waited for me to get home from the crazy chicken show. So poultry have been part of my life since I was a kid, and my kids have all got stuck with kind of the chicken bug, not so much showing, but they all like to have them. And it's been a good way to raise children, keep a family together. My dad, and I told this to my doctor in Arizona last year, wondered why I was going to chicken shows. My dad always used to tell people, show me a kid, especially a boy, who's involved with a poultry project, and I'll show you a boy that never gets in serious trouble. And I've seen it work. Just a sidelight, we're a small town, but some of the parents in town who had serious problems with kids, they'd bring those kids down to Harry and say, you work for Harry. Every one of those men in their 70s and 80s today remembers their time at the poultry farm and how it turned their life around.
Good story.
Yeah. Well, I'm asked by so many people, and I'm so busy at shows, I don't have time to go through the thing with them. And we have it's a wonderful thing. We keep getting new people involved in our hobby, and they don't know some of the history.
So there's some things there I didn't know. And I knew Harry, I think I met him in the early 70s when I first started buying chicks from him, and a great mentor all those years for sure. And I do miss him.
I loved clerking for him. I must have clerked for him, oh my God, 50 or 100 times. And Matt and I go through stories when we're together with people that don't know, and they get laughing so hard and they think we're bullshitting them. We're not bullshitting them. That's the way it was, man.
He had fun with poultry and poultry people.
Yeah. Well, they were his people. I mean, there was a common bond, and he helped everybody he could help.
Yeah, he did. Another thing that helped to tie in a little bit, Mike, is where do you know about Brahmas? Well, it's the first breed I had. But I talked to Fane Whitney. He would talk to me and explain things. I sat in smoke-filled hotel rooms, as you guys did in the 70s and 80s. And you sat in that room as a young person and you shut up and you listened to what these old guys that had been doing this for 30, 40 years had to say. I don't remember the year, but as a kid, little kid, Dad bought me light Brahmas from Fane Whitney, my first ones. And I was so proud, probably 50 years later, at the Columbus, Ohio show, Fane Whitney came up and he said, it's a nice display of Brahmas you showed, Jeff. Congratulations. I said, thank you, Fane. He said, do you think I could buy a pair? I said, Fane, you take any 2 chickens or all of them, whatever you want, take them home. And I'm honored to have you want my chickens. That was, if you had Brahmas and Fane Whitney wanted them,
Yep,
that was
that's
a
a
big
good deal.
Yep, absolutely.
I think that's the big miss now is, and we talk often on here about people starting at third base. You don't have that 2-day show where you had to sit in a hotel room and get that one question that you were allowed to ask. Now they want it all bing, bing, bing. They want it spoon fed to them. And I think we benefited by coming up that way. And I think some of these new people are missing that experience. So hopefully with some of this, we're able to bring some of that along to them so they realize that this all didn't just happen, because some of these people come into it and think it's always been there that way. That a lot of people over the years have kept this going.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's about, I have preached so many times, it's about asking a question, listening to the answer. Most of the time they don't want your opinion. You ask the question. Here's what I did. Now, if you don't agree with it, that's fine. But I mean, when we were coming up, if you didn't agree with it, you didn't even change expressions. I mean, you just sat there and thought, yeah. And
otherwise nobody else would talk to you.
No, never. You're done. And the funny thing is that, a few of those times you'd think, well, that's got to be bullshit. And then after a year or two, you think, now what did they tell me to do? Because you've messed up. And I treasure those times. I mean, Matt and I talk about sitting on tailgates with George Schreffler. We were 13, 14 years old at the Old Great Lakes show, and just listening. I mean, that was the education. There were books, but why would you use a book when you had the people right there?
Mm-hmm.
And they took us under their wings, and I mean, yeah, I treasure those moments, and I try to convey that no matter how well you do at a show or whatever, they're chickens. It's the people.
Yeah.
It's the people. It's the people that call you in February when snow's hitting you in the ass and they haven't heard from you in a month or so. How you doing? The ribbon, the trophy, none of that calls you. The people do. And well, good Lord, us three. I mean, I know I've known you 50 years. Matt has. I've clerked for. We've clerked for you a jillion. It's just, but that's a community, and
Yes,
I think we need more community, unless I don't know what word to use. That I won't have to rate this when I put it on YouTube.
Cult.
Huh?
Cult.
Yes.
It's a cult.
Yeah, that'll work. That'll work. But anyway, that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, I have to put one in here because you talked about those hotel rooms. I can remember years ago, and this is in the early 70s, Ed Miller, Earl Jones, Dick Ross, Clay Dove, and I sitting in there. And Earl, we was allowed to ask Ed one question, and he wasn't the most nicest guy in the world when it come to asking questions. But Earl asked him how to raise white coach and large fowl. And Ed was a wholesale greenhouse guy by trade. So Ed went on this spiel about how to raise the Millard no acid yellow tomatoes. And he went through the whole spiel, how he created them all the way down. And we got all the way done. And I said, Earl, now, if you take out yellow Millard no acid tomatoes and put in white cochins, I think he just answered your question. Yeah. So he didn't tell you directly, but you had to listen to him, and God, he droned on for an hour. But that's just the way it was. And I learned more that way, I think, than all the books and videos and whatever in the world, is just hearing from the horse's mouth. But what a character. So those type of people, we don't have many of them left in the hobby anymore, but you had to be a diehard to hang around. That's why I always loved Harry. Harry never judged. If I wanted a bird to do some crazy thing, he'd go get it and then tell me where it would be. And then I'd pay him and I'd go get it. He never judged, but he always come back and said, "How'd you do with that?" I said, "Well, that worked. This didn't work." And he said, he shake his head. "I'll get you something else." That's why I always loved Harry. And we're since Halbach Poultry Farm went away, with this hobby's got a big void there. I don't think that'll ever be filled. Many have tried, but none will ever fill that. It was a poultry show every day, he always said, and that's what it was.
Yeah, it was a world's largest daily poultry show. And talking about the old guys in that, I'm telling you, the who's who of poultry all visited the farm. They slept in the basement. People would come from Europe, South America, all over the world, just to spend a day looking at those birds. It was a sight to behold, watching them all running out there. Yep, very nice.
All right, now we got what breeds for you. I think you said what your breeds were.
Yeah, I think to talk a little bit about breeding poultry, my beliefs are pretty simple. I try to find as good a birds as I can, again, with offsetting faults. A story, but it's so typical in today's world. There was a nice old guy, showed a lot of chickens for a number of years in Ohio. Boy, Jeff, he said, would I like to have some of those white Wyandottes of yours? I said, no problem. I bought him 2 trios. 3 years, and he won. He won him big. And 3 years later, he said, geez, those Wyandottes aren't looking so good anymore. I got this problem and that problem. Where should I go to get new blood? Well, those Wyandottes were in my barn for 30, 40 years. There was no new blood introduced. Brian Knox started and finished with Fane Whitney's Brahmas. You don't go looking for new blood. It's there. You just got to bring it out. We probably do too much inbreeding because we don't know where the progeny was. There was a younger judge, resides in Illinois. I was down there a couple of weeks ago. He got some Brahmas from my sister last year, 5 pair, and he mated them up just as we said. And we were going through the young birds, probably 60 young light Brahmas, and the top 5 pullets all came from one mating. Top 5 males all came from a different mating. So, okay, what do we got to change and mix and match to put this together? And we sure want to repeat that mating we did because we produced these good ones out of it. And I do, people ask me if I miss the daily contact with the chickens. A little bit. I don't miss the walking out with frozen waters and cleaning coops and stuff like that, but that was all part of it. But last week I was at 3 different individuals' homes or farms, helping them to cull their birds. I do the same when I'm in Arizona. And that culling goes along with breeding. Boy, my doctor, Harry, culled his birds for 20 years. I've been doing it for 20 years. He still has no idea what we're doing. Just that he's happy because he wins. But he doesn't know why we're culling these birds. And you need to know why to cull, when to cull. Watching your age is another important part. If you knew when things were hatched, well, these 6 males were all hatched the same week, but we're in the 3rd month, and this one guy's way behind, so we get rid of him. When we get to month 6, and this guy still doesn't have a tail, but the rest of that age group are feathered out, We don't want to perpetuate that tail. I don't care how great a front or comb or anything else has, because that's going to follow through in your breeding program. It's a lot of trial and error, but there's a lot less error the longer you do it, and you just kind of know which uncle to mate to which niece and how it works, and it all happens, but it takes time, and you're going to raise some culls, and every so often you'll get a good chicken.
Yeah.
I love seeing good chickens. I like looking at them. Good waterfowl. It's really nice. I still remember my dad's Rowans running under the apple trees. Why did you have them pinned there? Well, because if we let them out in the sun, they're going to fade and lose their color like a buff Orpington will. You got to learn how to. But chickens in general should have shade.
Yes.
As you're raising them. I would, some of them we've touched on, guys.
What do you think about judging, Jeff, from when you started? Because you started way before I did, and where it was then and where we are now.
Yeah, it's changed. You guys are aware, but let me state up on the front end. I've judged in 44 states, 4 Canadian provinces, South Africa, Mexico, been to poultry shows in Germany and England. I just did a show in Mexico, and they had been calling for quite a while. And I finally said, we're going to go. And my wife went along with me, otherwise I might not have made it home. I had so much fun. But it was just a fun chicken show. I want to say this about them. I won't carry on long. The age group of people showing were different than what we have. There was no youth show. There were young people at the show with their parents. There was hardly anybody over 60. And not many over 50. Most of these were young family people. One of the things I did was when I finally got to the show after 3 days of touring that area of Mexico, I got to the show and there's the cages, there's the chicken. There's no tags on the cages. Well, I said, how do they know even which cage to put their chicken in? Well, there's a little number on the top of the cage. Well, I couldn't see that. I said, we got to put tags on these cages. Well, okay. By God, they went around and hung 8 by 10 sheets of paper on each tag, because I think I'm only here one time, and I wanted to write as much information as I could. There were a couple of Mexican judges who went with me, asked a lot of questions. I still this morning, I got more questions from these guys. They really want to learn. They're serious chicken people. They would like to become a district of the American Poultry Association and Bantam Association. You guys got to have more members, but there's chicken shows going on in Mexico all the time. I'm asked to judge at least once a month. I was surprised. A group approached me from Colombia and one from Guatemala to come there and judge their chicken shows. And my wife gave me an elbow in the side, said, "You were not going there. You might not come home." So yeah. I would have liked to have gone just to talk to the people, because we couldn't speak the language. I can't. But through translators, we had the love of poultry in common, and it developed real friendships. When I was first a young lad traveling with my dad to shows, the judging was done by people. It was done by professional judges, and it was done by guys who made all or a portion of their living from exhibition poultry. And if you screwed up as a judge, you were taking bread out of your pockets. So they were, I thought, all good. If you exhibited enough, it's the same as today. You show this style of bird for that judge because everybody in the country, these guys were well-traveled, people knew them. And that's why Dad would like to show 5 in a class because there's going to be one in there somebody's going to like. But what those judges did, because it wasn't a good thing, because there weren't a lot of them, and the better ones even then got hired almost constantly, they could change a breed. An example, we were at a show in, I think it was Sandwich, Illinois. I was a young kid, and I had really great Leghorn Bantam females for the time. The males were good, but not an overabundance of tail. He won't mind if I mention his name. John Wunderlich judged. And John changed Leghorn Bantams at that point in time for about 10 years. Because if you were going to show when John was judging Leghorns, baby, you wanted a big tail dragging on the ground. That's what you were going to win with under John. So that taught me as a young guy, I'm not going to raise chickens for what the judge likes. I'm going to raise them according to how I interpret the standard, and you'll do more winning than not. We have made the transition from professional judges to hobby judges. And I don't know the reasons for a lot of these things, but I look at it and I don't understand some of it. When I look at our yearbooks, I can go through page after page of people who have a judge's license. Yet essentially, I see basically the same 20 judges judging from one end of the country to the next. I know there's a reason for that, but I wonder if people aren't just getting a judge's license to say I'm a judge, because I don't see them judging anywhere. And I hate to think that there's many people in the exhibition poultry industry that I don't know. I'd like to think I knew them all. So in no particular order, I think you have to look professional and act professional. Part of that is how you dress. I'm not saying you have to wear a tie all the time, but I think a collared shirt's in order, not a t-shirt. I think you look a little more professional, and it gives you a little more credence, a little more respect to start off the game. If they start talking, you don't know anything, no matter how you're dressed. You need to be able to explain yourself to exhibitors concisely, not long and drawn out. And it's going to slap you in the face sometimes, because some exhibitors are going to say, I would like to talk to you. What do you think about my chicken? And you tell them, well, you stupid shit. You don't know anything, Judge. Well, why did you ask my opinion if you only wanted me to agree with you?
Yeah.
I see exhibitors going to licensed judges who are not judging, going through their classes and criticizing the guy that did them. That to me is unethical. I will discuss an exhibitor's birds with him, but I will not discuss the placings of another judge because I don't know what he saw at that particular moment in time. To talk about that moment in time, 2 or 3 years ago, I judged in Utah. They were kind of nice white Wyandottes. I went best on a male, but he didn't even end up best American. And Bart Pels judged the second show, the double show. He had his champions over there, and I had mine here. Most were the same, except for this white Wyandotte. And when I'm in Utah, they like me to explain what I'm doing and why I did it. And I kept looking at this white Wyandotte male who looked like garbage when I judged him. But boy, he's standing over there. He looked like $1 million and made me look like a fool. And it was hard for me initially to understand if we got 2 shows in one day and we're judging them 2 different times and the judge knows what he's doing, everything ought to be placed the same. So why are we doing it twice? But birds can change in minutes. I think before you get a judge's license, you need experience. You get a little bit of that by clerking. You get more of it by visiting breeders' houses, by talking to breeders, by getting out of your particular breed's aisle and go looking at the other birds in the show, seeing how they placed and try to get it in your head. Well, why did he place it that way? What did he see? What's setting these birds apart? Where most of the newer, I was going to say younger because everybody's younger to me, but the newer judges, it's one thing to do classes of 3, 5, and 7 pullets.
Exactly.
It's a whole nother game when you get to an Ohio or a Knoxville or the bigger shows, and now all of a sudden I've got 56 white silky pullets to sort through. And you need to do it. You need to have a plan in your head how you're going to do this in a timely fashion, because today's shows,
you got to move.
You got to move. You got to do 400 or 500 birds. There were days that back at Columbus where I had to do 800. I felt terrible afterwards. I was tired, but you just had to get the show done. Along that line, if we got 1,000 birds, you got to think to yourself as a judge. We got 1,000 birds. We got 2 judges. We got 500 apiece. I got to do 500 birds today and be done. I judged a fair with a new gentleman a couple, 3 years ago. It was 900 birds. I look over, I like to keep track of what other guys are doing, and I looked over at him, and there were less than 100 single comb clean leggeds, but he wasn't done with the single comb clean leggeds 4 hours into judging. So now I got to kick it in the butt.
Yep.
And the exhibitors are going to say, well, he's not giving my chicken a fair chance. But the birds have to be judged and people want to go home before midnight. So you have to give yourself a pace and stick with it and keep going. One of the things that slows a number of people down, you're hired to judge the poultry show, not to talk to your clerk. Now, I talk to my clerk sparingly. I will tell them some stories. It's kind of the joke at Columbus that it's not unusual for me to go through 4 clerks in a day. But it's important for me that people think I judge their classes correctly.
Yeah.
I don't care what the clerk thinks. To me, his job is to write down the placings. And if I ask for help, I expect quality help. So I'm not the most popular guy in the world to clerk for. This would be, I think, a good time. I'm going to go through one thing, and then I'm going to talk about how we pick champions now at Columbus. A long time ago, 40 years, probably 50, my dad and I've called him Dad more in this podcast than I ever have in my life. He was always Harry. So Harry and I went out to Rochester, New York, and we're judging their fall show out there. And this kid is judging with us. And he looked like he was still in high school. But I kind of looked at what he was picking, and I thought he was doing okay. And we came up to Champion Row, and I said to the young man, I said, so tell us what you think. He said, well, he said, I would much rather hear what you think, and I'll let you know if I think any differently, but I'm with the two of the top judges in the country. I'm here to learn. And that kid turned out to be Rick Hare, who's one of the better judges in the country today. So if you're new and you're with some experienced people, you certainly have a right to state your opinion, but do it in a respectful manner, I think. So I think 3 years ago, we started picking champions at Columbus with two people. And I'm sure everybody knew Clell Agler, who ran that Columbus show. Clell was a true visionary when it came to exhibition poultry. I was very fortunate. You might call us best friends. We talked on the phone 3-4 times a week. I'd get a call early in the morning. Hey, I got a great idea I thought of last night. Mm-hmm. And he'd go through his idea for the show, and I don't think that's going to work. So his first idea on this single was to have one judge do it all. And I said, Clell, that's going to be me, and I don't need that kind of pressure. Oh, he said, wait a minute. He said, we're going to dress you up in a tuxedo, and I'm going to lower you down from the ceiling, and I'm going to shoot fireworks off. And I mean, he could see all these things. But through his visions, that Ohio show has turned into what it is today. It's the premier poultry exhibit, certainly in this country and quite probably the world. So back in the 60s, guys, early 60s, 50s, when I first started tagging along with my dad, it was not unusual that a panel of judges would judge the classes, put their class champions up front, and a completely different judge would come in and pick them. Just off the top of my head, I remember them doing it at Great Lakes, and Peter Cassell would come in and do that. And then when Clell and Brian and I went to the National England show, several thousand birds, we were treated extremely well, very courteous. They had guys going through all the classes, and everybody there, basically, with the exception of a couple, is a specialty judge. You're licensed to judge Bramus. Okay, you're doing pretty good with them. You want to try Wyandottes now? And they escorted us around. They'd let us talk to judges, ask questions, etc. We were very impressed by the quality of birds and the show. So we were supposed to get there kind of early the next morning because up in the front, their champion row, they don't have class champions. They had every best of breed up there. Both large and bantam. The large would be on the bottom. The bantam would be on top of the large fawn. And here's one guy, I can't remember his name. I feel bad about it. But his job was to pick the top birds of the show. And I was chagrined because we were late. We missed a train. And in my life, I haven't been late 5 times for anything. Well, we showed up, and the guy running the show, he caught us. He stopped judging. And every exhibitor in the place is up here watching this guy judge the breed. He stops him. And he takes Colin, Brian, and I, and he says, here. He gave us the run of the whole best of breed champion. So I said, guys, we got to move and look him over and get the hell out of here because these people are waiting to go home. So that's where we saw one guy doing it. And I talked to Clell from one guy doing it to having two guys do it. And my reasoning is that one guy might have a favorite, or be accused of having a favorite breed. One guy might miss something, but that other guy there with him would pick up on it. So I said, with the magnitude, the importance of the champions at this show, I think we should have two guys up there. My mic went to hell the first year, so I just took it off. And Clell thought, why didn't he talk? Well, it wasn't working, so I couldn't talk. But if you noticed, as that discussion of the birds on Champion Row went on, it was actually, the audio was better in the back of the building than it was right up front where we were. But people kept coming and coming and coming forward to be able to see and hear what we were doing. So there was real interest in it. The other thing that happened that drove us to this, I think the year before we had 13 judges, and my job is to corral everybody and take votes.
I've been involved in that.
Yes, and I've been accused of telling everyone how to vote. And Dan Castle said, geez, Jeff, most of the time you don't even vote. I'm too busy writing stuff down.
You usually never get a chance.
No, I don't get a chance to talk. And it gets hard to control a group of judges that size. They get in little kind of pods, and then you got to bust in. And I had one judge that couldn't stand up anymore. I had to go to the chair and get him to vote. And it just needed to change. And I think he changed it for the better. Along those lines, one of the shows currently that has a lot of interest, and by interest, I mean people standing, watching the picking of Champion Row, is Knoxville. And we did the champion thing last year, and then the paperwork went to the office and they were going to announce things. And I asked on both sides, because my voice was dying at the time, I went over to the groups and I said, hey, would you guys like to know what we're talking about up there and why we ended up picking what we're picking and what we think of each bird? And boy, it was a resounding yes. So we're going to try that at Knoxville again this year. And I think the crew at Columbus has certainly had instructions from Clell. I had instructions, should I die, this is what you're going to do. That they're going to keep this show going and keep it improving and making it better. And I'm impressed by the interest and phone calls I'm getting. And Jeff Cloud told me to check with you if I was going to do this here. I'm going to do. What do you think? And it's always good maybe to run it past some people because of the magnitude of that show. It affects more than just a couple people. You could affect a lot of people.
On that note, Newt Long's going to be on Friday. So we wanted to get him in here before the Ohio State Fair and the Ohio National, just kind of to reassure everybody that although Club passed fairly suddenly, he's been grooming Newt along since he was a teenager. So I think Newt will be doing a fine job, and he knows everybody's looking over his shoulder. So we want to get him on here and explain what's going to happen. And I think he'll do great. So I have faith in him. he's put up with grief for all these years. He deserves a little peace of quiet.
Yeah, he when that chicken show was on, there was only two ways to do things, and one of them was the wrong way in his mind. And he would speak his mind, and if you didn't want to listen, leave. You don't have to be here. Take your chickens and go home.
Yep.
You get that privilege when you're paying the bills.
Yeah. There was a lot of years people don't realize that show didn't pay for itself. That money came out of Klaus' pocket. That's what kept that show going for all those years. He did it his way.
Yep, exactly.
With help.
We locked horns lots of times over the years, but at the end of the day, he always had the best of the hobby at heart, and he took that to the grave with him.
Yeah,
because he's always thinking the next step. He was planning for 2033. And I said, well, all of us are going to be lucky to make it till then. So that was a ways off, but he was looking for it. So we got him the ABA National in 2023. And I will say one thing that Karen and I discussed, because you know how much he helped the ABA over the years, but there will be a special award for the next 5 years at the Ohio National for Champion Bantam in his honor.
Great.
Sponsored by the ABA. And I think you'd like that.
Yep. I can tell people now. I couldn't then. Probably didn't want me to now, but I'm going to, as long as we're on the subject. Back when the ABA printed the first colored standard with the pictures in it, that $10,000 donation came from Clow.
Yep, I knew that too. And he didn't want nobody to know it.
No.
For years, they took the premiums away from him at the Ohio State Fair. And he used his money that he got paid to run the Ohio State Fair to make sure everybody had premiums, and did that to the very end. So, a lot of people didn't know that either. So done a lot for the hobby over the years, that behind the scenes. And here in Ohio, if there was a disease incident, Clow knew about it. Clow was on it. Clow took care of it. And that's the relationship that I think we're going to miss a little bit with him being gone, because he was very instrumental in the Ohio Poultry Association and how we managed through all these regulations and shutdowns and things. So I know if I got a call in the middle of the day, something's wrong somewhere, and that's what it was. AI broke out, or somebody did something stupid. He needed intervention. So that we're going to miss, I'm sure.
Kind of wrapping up my mental capacity for the day.
I know you said this is more you talk in a week. So
another big change from my youth is state fairs were the shows then, where there were very few, if any, specialty shows. And the fairs have continued for the most part. Some states don't even have poultry shows anymore. But I think state fairs are extremely important to our hobby, because that's where the John Q. public can come in and, oh my gosh, I didn't know there were chickens that look like that. And that cultivates an interest, and maybe he's got a flock of laying hens, but he saw those Polish and let's go get some of those. I've had clubs, and I'm just throwing darts here, who have been run by the same people for years. And this is how they run it. But they complain that nobody comes and helps anymore. And if young people come and help, and they say, what if we did this? Maybe we could coop the leghorns in rabbit cages, as a for instance. We've never done it that way. We're never going to do it that way. We're not going to change. Well, that young person is not going to come back and help next year. We had a club fold in Arizona along those lines. 2 years later, the people that had the new thoughts have started a new show, and it's going great. The other big difference, and I think it's wonderful, through most of my life in exhibition poultry, there were very few, if any, women in the show hall showing chickens. They were there with their families, but they weren't doing the chickens. And I got to tell you, some of our best conditioners, show people, breeders, we've got a lot of women in the hobby right now that are an asset to the hobby. I'm glad to have them.
On that note,
I agree.
the number 2 breed, I just did the breed census for the standard, and the number 2 breed now is Silky Bantams. So they have surpassed moderns. Another one, a third of our membership of the ABA is Silky breeders. So that's saying something right there. And another one that's big, and they kind of went down some, but their numbers are still holding up, is the Saramas. And you and I were in office when they came in, and at one time that was a big chunk of our membership, because one thing about those people, they all join, they all pay their dues, and they all bring their birds to the shows. And the Silky people are, like you said, most of them are women, a few men, but most of them are women, exceptional conditioners. We get to see some big classes around here, and the breeds really picked up, and I was kind of surprised they were that big, but they are the number 2 breed right now.
That surprises me. Good.
So yeah, we rated the top 20. So some things have changed, some things have stayed the same, but that was the biggest surprise, I thought. You know, the Rocks, the Wyandottes, Cochins, they're all about the same place they've always been. You know, Old English is always up there. I think there's more Old English shown than everything else all put together. But, you know, their numbers have fell off over the years, but they're still, you know, the number 1 breed. So I think the Bantam part of it's doing good. We talked last week. Sometimes I wonder about large fowl and, you know, where they're going. We still have them out there, but since I started in the 70s, it was at the end of it, I guess, you know, that gas crisis hit, and then the stringmen all started slowing down, and then we started seeing the Bantams equal out to large fowl. And I think the large fowl are struggling maybe some. What's surprising is big ducks. I judged a class in Kentucky. The big ducks are strong. It was a fairly big class down there, a big waterfowl meet, but I think the big ducks are really hot right now. Turkeys are hot right now. Big geese are hot right now. And I think the large fowl chickens maybe are sliding a little bit. Just my observations here the last couple of years.
I think numbers wise, you're correct, Matt. I'm hopeful that it's a small trend. I know of myself, people that have large fowl, they breed the birds, but they just don't take them to shows. You know, and you got to go to shows to find chickens. This shipping a box of 5 large fowl costing you $400 in freight. That's tough.
It's a killer.
Yeah.
And they're a lot harder to get ready to go to a show too. You know, it's a lot easier to wish 20 Bantams than 10 large fowl. So
that's basically where I am with them. I mean, I still raise, you know, 100, 150 big Cochins, but good Lord, that when you want to set a display down of them, I mean, how much time do you have when, you know, like we could show 25, 30 Cochin Bantams and Wyandotte Bantams, and to get 3 or 4 big Cochins ready. And to do it right? I mean, to do it right, not just those, because I can't do that. I can't just throw some bitches in there. If we're going, we're going to go, and you go for all you can do. You get beat, but you give it your best shot. And that includes the box they go in, the crate you're putting them in. How many of these big damn things can I get in this truck?
Yeah.
I mean, it all figures in, and I'm as guilty as the rest. It's like, yeah, I still got them. Maybe we'll drag one out, maybe 2. But it's like, by the time you get right down to it, it's just so much easier to show the Bantams.
Yeah. Transportation is easier. They're easier to take to the show. I am asked, and I wanted to just touch on it a little today. What kind of chickens should I get? They asked me. And I said, well, what kind of facilities do you have?
Mm-hmm.
That kind of tells you what kind of birds can I have? Large fowl, waterfowl? Can I have bantams exclusively? What kind of facilities do I have? Am I willing to build some cages, buy some cages? This hauling birds in nice fancy carriers is real nice. I had to get one for my granddaughter. But I'm telling you, Harry and I transport a lot of chickens to shows in cardboard boxes. And they don't mess up their tails at all. So I think once you understand your facilities, what kind of room, growing space birds need, that will lead you towards what breed you should have. The second question is what you got to ask yourself. What do I expect out of this breed of chickens? What kind of person am I? What kind of temperament do I have? Am I going to go to the coop 3-4 times a day? Am I going to play with them? Am I going to train the modern games to stand? Or do I just want something I don't have to wash? I can just throw in a cage. You got to answer those questions yourself.
Yep,
Exactly.
I agree. I'm with you on the boxes, Jeff. I mean, I made all those carriers for years. Yeah. And I mean, I use totes.
He always uses a cardboard box.
Cardboard boxes. I don't want all that shit.
Yeah, they work.
And they stay better. I mean, honestly, they have more room in them. They don't screw themselves up. The box gives a little bit. You know, that wood, that don't give it all.
Nope.
The box gives a little bit. They get spinning around in there. Put as many holes in it as you want. Whatever. Yeah, I know.
All right, we better wrap up here. We're about an hour and 11 minutes. One thing I'll note, you got 3 ABA presidents sitting here. You got 2 old ones and 1 new one.
Good.
How about that? There probably ain't been 3 of them in the same place for a long time.
No.
They're
probably not.
Their
I'm
main,
honored.
there may never been 3 of them that ever got along. I don't know. I can't say.
We appreciate you coming on, and it's been a great show. And
yeah, thanks, Jeff. I appreciate it.
Get it up on Facebook and send you some links.
I enjoyed it.
All right. Good talking
Thanks,
to you.
guys.
Yeah, thank you, Jeff.
You bet. Bye.
Bye.